lost all control. Gravity is all that I know. She's over me. She's over me. She comes with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Night Terrors. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Hope you guys are doing great. Thanks for being here with me. I am hoping to keep you wildly entertained throughout the course of the night. That is the plan anyway, so providing I succeed at that, we'll be doing good. This is the Night Terrors. This is our shorter format Paranormal Portal shows. Just right up front, we came off of 2 amazing nights of shows. Friday, we teamed up with Freaky Friday crew. We were over on the Kev Baker channel, the Kev Baker Show channel, and did 3 hours. Then we came over to the Paranormal Portal, did an additional 2 hours. It was a 5-hour run, but it was just fantastic. We had a lot of fun, great discussion, and it was really fantastic. And we had a good time, of course. And then last night, of course, we had Altias with us. And that was amazing as well. So we've really done pretty incredibly well for 2 shows, back to back, phenomenal. Not that there's ever a bad show. Don't get me wrong, but I was just really thrilled with the shows this last weekend. Had a lot of fun and amazing. So, but here we are. This is our Sunday night show. And again, the phone lines will be open throughout the duration of the show. Its call-in number is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500 is the number to call if you want to be on the show. And please remember to check out the podcast as well. The podcast is not this. This is not, when we refer to the Paranormal Portal podcast, this is not it. So if you're watching on YouTube, this is our YouTube stream, which is completely separate. We have an additional show that happens on podcasts. It's audio only, and you can check that out on Pandora, Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, and a bunch others. I'm working on getting us on Stitcher, but no luck yet. There's a red tape that I have to get through in order to get us there, but that is certainly a future plan for us as well. But the podcasts are 90% of the time completely unique episodes. Sometimes we poured over one of our YouTube streams for the podcast because we just felt like, for whatever reason, they were great shows, or we felt like our podcast audience would enjoy those as well. But they are usually their own deal. They are their own shows. And so it's like having an additional 3 episodes of the show every week if you check out our podcast. And the nice thing about the podcast, of course, is you can download them. Download them to your phone, to your computer, whatever. Listen at your leisure. You don't have to make a scheduled time or anything to enjoy it. Not that you can't do the same thing with YouTube, but I imagine YouTube still requires data. So if you got a podcast platform player like Podcast Addict or one of the ones that I just mentioned, you can download the episode and just have it there in your pool. And then if you're going on a long drive or something, just push play and enjoy the musings of myself, of course, and Don when he's available. So just throwing it out there. We'd love to make that grow even more. So please check it out if you haven't already. If you listen to the podcast and you like what you're hearing, please head over to iTunes. Leave us a good review because that'll go a long way in helping the shows to get referred to other listeners that may not have heard of the portal. So anyway, I guess that's about all the laundry right at the front end here. So I hope you guys are ready because It's time for bed. And now we're committed. Now we're committed to about 50 minutes of listening fun. So let's get into this and see what happens here. I got some stories, of course, pulled up for you guys, and the first one sounds kind of deep, kind of dark, maybe. It comes from Massachusetts, and it has to do with a demon, shadow man, or something. And I'm not sure what that means. It's not a really, really long story, but let's hear what this person experienced. Says, this happened to me a few years ago, and I posted to a site once asking for help, but really I didn't get any kind of solid response. Okay. So in high school, my mom went away for a vacation, so I ended up sleeping under bed for a few days. And one night, my brothers had some friends over. Pretty normal, nothing really going on. And they ended up passing out in the living room, and I went to my mom's room and fell asleep. Well, I woke up to some movement in the bottom of the bed. We had 2 cats, so I thought it was just that, and I looked down to my feet to see what he was doing, and crouched down right at the bottom of the bed, petting my cat, was a black figure. Basically just a shadow. I got so scared, I sat straight up, pulled my legs up away from it, and just couldn't take my eyes off of it. It then noticed, I guess, and stood straight up. It was pretty tall. The TV behind it was shining, and I could see through it a bit. And I tried to see the face, but there was just nothing. A blank face, just all black, like a shadow. So this is where it got freaky, for me at least. The figure then turned and was gone out of the room in a split second. I got up, remembering that there were other people in the house, so I went out through the dining room to look into the living room, and everyone was there, just fast asleep. I turned my head to the right and saw into the kitchen. The black figure was just standing right in the corner of the kitchen, so I walked into the doorway and just looked at it, and we stood there like that for maybe 15 or 20 seconds. But it felt like forever, and then all of a sudden, it started coming near me, and just as it got a few inches away from me, it turned down the hallway, stopped for a second, and then it was gone out the door. It has me puzzled for the longest time what this was. It gives me the worst chills whenever I think of it. And ever since then, it has always felt like someone is near me or watching when I'm laying in bed or in a really dark room. It's incredibly scary sometimes, and if anyone has any bit of info that would help, it'd be greatly appreciated. Now that's interesting. So this thing was just in the room petting the cat, which is really kind of a sweet gesture, I guess. Obviously the cat didn't seem to be bothered by it. And I always presume that cats are pretty tuned in to the energy of things. And so if the cat was laying there kind of calm and just getting petted, I guess I probably would maybe think that it wasn't really an evil or dark thing, because animals cue on that stuff really well. And I'll repeat that, I've said this many times on the show, just because an entity appears shadowy doesn't necessarily mean evil, dark. It doesn't mean that at all. It just means that it's a dark entity. And that even of it, just saying that sounds like a horrible thing. But again, I think we get this paradigm in our head. It's like dark equals bad, light equals good, or shining light is good, and that's not really not an indicator of that at all. So again, I think that harkens back to the old black and white westerns, where the black hat guys were the bad guys and the white hat guys were the good guys, and that's how you always could tell them apart. You always knew right at the beginning of every scene, there's a bad guy, he's got a black hat on, And it'd be nice if the bad guys in the world just wore black hats and we could know, but I guess that wouldn't work out so well for me. But you know what I'm saying. Anyway, it just has nothing to do with the appearance of an entity. Doesn't really have any indication of whether it is benevolent or malevolent or indifferent. It seemed like cats, so I guess that's a pretty good start. It also stood there and wasn't really trying to be evasive, which is interesting as well. Now, we do hear about these kind of shadow entities, and that don't seem to be hurtful at all. They're kind of observers, for lack of a better term. Now, there are another type of shadow people that are apparently extraordinarily bad news. And I guess the hard part is how do you tell which is which? Well, you kind of got to trust your gut. That's the best advice I can give you. I think that we too have kind of an indicator in us. Have you never felt someone walk into a room and just go, ooh, that guy gives me bad feelings. Those are bad vibes coming from that person. And you know just to stay away. And maybe it's just your imagination, but maybe you are picking up on something. And so you always got to trust those. And I would just say that in for the lack of any better response, trust your gut. If it doesn't feel bad, then trust that maybe it isn't. And hopefully we're both right. So let's get to the next one. This one's coming from Washington State, right next door to me here. My mic just seems really live tonight. Not sure why, but I don't have it jacked up too far, I don't think. But let me know if the mic is overpowering or whatever, ladies and gentlemen. Not sure. It just seems a little hot. All right, so here we go. This is Washington State. Has to do with apparitions, voices, and touches. A little stuffy. Hold on. It's that spring. The spring starting to break through. Getting those dusty, polleny, whatever things cooking. Even the trees are budding out here already. It's really strange. It's kind of been a really bizarre spring. It was really warm. We just had a cold snap of a few days, and now it's warming up again. And the air's definitely got that spring feel. It's cool. I love it. But let's go to Washington and see what's going on here. It says I've been experiencing really wacky paranormal things for a long time. Well, since around the time my sister was born, actually. Demon child, anyone? Just kidding. I've heard voices, seen weird shadows out of the corner of my eye, and been subjected to many weird trials of ghostly activity, but I'd never actually seen a ghost. Not until a few years ago, that is. It must have been a Saturday afternoon because my entire family was gone on some sort of trip, leaving me alone at home to wait to be picked up by a family friend whom I was to babysit for that evening. Well, I waited and I sat in the rocking chair in the living room and read a book just to pass the time. Now, the rocking chair is situated so that while sitting in it, one can see into the kitchen and therefore have a plain and entirely unobstructed view of the kitchen door, which has in it a plate of glass about 2 feet wide and 5 feet tall. While I was sitting there, I got the urge to look up from my book for some reason, most likely to check on the time on the clock near the kitchen door, but I really don't remember. Either way, I got much more of an eyeful than I'd ever bargained for. There she was, a girl, walking straight past the kitchen door. No, not walking, floating. She moved as though she were on a dolly, smoothly, and without disrupting her clothing or hair. She moved quickly, not so quickly that I didn't get a good eyeful of her. She was thin, pale, and wore some kind of pale white dress. It was rather plain, so I figured it was a summer dress of some sort. Sleeveless, made in a kind of light material. Her black hair was straight and very long, and her head hung so that her face was hidden behind a veil of hair. Was just seeing her spooked me out since I was home alone, but what really gave me the chills was the fact that with how quickly she was moving and the setup of the windows in our house, I should have seen her go by the large dining room window a few moments later, but she never appeared. Well, I was terrified for weeks after the episode, and I'm still constantly afraid of seeing her. I've glimpsed her a few other times. It wasn't until just this year, in fact, that I found out that I'm not the only one who's caught a peek of this ghostly girl. My mom told me earlier this year that she constantly sees the girl out of the corner of her eye, walking past both the kitchen door and the window above the kitchen sink. Once in a while, she's seen her moving outside the living room windows. And she also informed me that she got the impression that our visitor was wearing a Victorian-style nightgown rather than the summer dress. But she did agree that it was white and that the girl looked as I described. So far, we haven't been able to piece together who this girl is or what she wants. She's never acknowledged our own presence and has never tried to communicate. Although she seems like somewhat of an intelligent being, I don't necessarily get a fuzzy feeling when I think about her, but my mom has never felt any kind of negativity coming from her. But seeing how the kitchen and living room are situated right next to each other, we think there's something in one of those two rooms that draws this girl in and makes her take the same path around that side of the house. Or maybe she's just a lonely spirit looking for a family to bring her in out of the cold. Thanks for reading. Questions and comments are very welcome. That's interesting. Now, of course, everybody thinks of Samara, or Samra, or however you say that name, the girl from the ring. And in Asia, that's a real common type of apparition to appear, is the girl standing with the head hanging and the hair going down, just like the girl in the ring. And oddly enough, I've just gotten an email from someone who told me a story of them experiencing this very type of phenomena, this very type of entity, while she was in bed, and with kind of a sleep paralysis feeling attached to it. And it's just really weird how this happens. Somebody will bring it up. Now, is it an uncommon apparition? No, it does show up kind of frequently in people's claims. I don't know if it's a specific kind of entity, or if it's truly is some, former living person. I don't know, and I can't be sure. I do, as our discussion with Al last night, I agree with him and have said so many times on the show that we're not just dealing with former living people, ghosts, quote unquote, but we're dealing with a whole myriad of entities, some of which were never human. They may appear human in many ways, but they probably were never incarnate in a human body in a human life. They just, they may manifest that way, or they may really look like that too. That might be a real common way that people look. I don't know, even other types of beings. But the fact that it comes up often, it makes me think that maybe there is a type of entity that is, whether it's an elemental or some kind of nature spirit or something of that measure, then, maybe that's how they look. I don't know. Of course, there's stories of sylphs and dryads and many things from folklore of long, long ago. And perhaps this is one of those types of manifestations. I don't know. But it is interesting that there's correlations between, there's consistency and continuity in the way these things come to me, like an email, now a story. And I mean, it could just be circumstantial, but I think it's peculiar. It is to me anyway, very peculiar. But let's pull up some more for your listening pleasure, because that's how we roll here on the Portal, ladies and gentlemen. It is our unending desire to keep you thoroughly entertained throughout the course of your journey through the Paranormal Portal. I gotta look at this. Okay, we'll do that one. We'll do that one. Ooh, this one looks good. I'm just pulling up a bunch more for you guys because I love me some ghost stories. That should be a good bunch. All right, so let's continue. I hope you guys are doing good, by the way, and thank you to all of you who joined us on both Friday and Saturday night and are joining us again tonight. That's always awesome. I do love that. We've got a pretty small crowd tonight, really. Only 30 of you. 32 is what I'm showing now, but I know that Tony Merkel's streaming in the confessionals right now. I think Kev Baker's streaming right now, too, so it just might be that there's other things going on, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I'm okay with it, really. All right, let's get to the next one. And this is coming out of Tennessee, folks. Coming out of Tennessee. And this one has to do with haunted places. It said, if I was asked which room of the old home place was the most haunted, without question, it would have been the old dining room. Although strange and inexplicable things happened in other areas of the house, they didn't leave you with the icy feelings you got from the old dining room. I've already told of one incident. I will now relate the rest of what I remember. My personal experiences with the room are few because that part of the house was torn down when I was 8 or 9 years old. I do remember that we younger kids were terrified to even walk past the doorway. We ran. We wouldn't go into the dining room unless Mom or Dad was in the kitchen. As a matter of fact, the old dining room is where they would hide our Christmas presents. They knew we wouldn't snoop in there. I remember the room stayed so cold that we used to use it as a refrigerator. A refrigerator. I'd say a refrigerator. One day, Mom made some Jell-O and put it on the table in the dining room to set up. After supper was over, she went in to get the Jell-O for dessert and discovered a man's handprint in the Jell-O. Like someone had stood with their hand in it and waited for it to gel, leaving a print. Another time, Mom had baked a pie and set it on the dining room table to cool, and when she went to put it on the table, I need to point out that we didn't eat in the dining room, we ate in the kitchen. It had been mutilated. It looked like someone took their hands and stirred it around and around. Oh, that bastard. That's horrible. We didn't use the dining room to eat in. We used it as a refrigerator, storage room, and as an extra bedroom. Nice. Somebody got to sleep there. There was many a time that we would be sitting in the kitchen or living room, and all hell would break loose in the dining room. It would sound like someone was trying to trash the place, and after a few minutes, things would get quiet, and when you checked the room, it would be a mess. Empty honey cans thrown about the room, and a lot of stuff that had been put away strewn about the room. I can recall how the door would lock by itself. It had an old-fashioned turn-type lock. All this consisted of was a short 2x2 piece of wood with a nail in the center, like the latches on an outhouse. I would imagine that the only reason for putting a latch on the door was because it was also used as a bedroom, so some measure of privacy while changing clothes. At times when Mom was busy cooking, she would send one of us kids into the dining room to fetch something for her, and we would go get it, and the door would be locked. And she would just tell us to wait a few minutes and then go back, and we would. And when we went back, the door would be open, easy as pie. A story my mom used to tell us about in the dining room involved her dad spending the night, or should I say trying to. This happened in the late 30s or early 40s after Grandma died, but before he remarried. My grandpa, the same one that lived in Prudential, had been out squirrel hunting that one evening, having killed him a few, decided to go by Mom's and have her cook them for him. Well, she fixed them and added them to what she already had fixed for the day, and they all sat down and had supper. After supper, they sat and talked, and before they realized it got dark, since Grandpa didn't have a light with him, Mom talked him into spending the night. He could sleep in the old dining room. Well, they all got settled in, said their goodnights, and blew out the coal oil lamp, and proceeded to go to sleep. About a half an hour or so later, Grandpa hollered at Mom and told her to please come get the dog out from under his bed. He told her he couldn't sleep with it moaning and bumping around under his bed. Well, Dad got up, lit the lamp, and went to go check. While assuring Grandpa that there shouldn't be a dog in the house, they searched high and low, and no dog was ever found. Grandpa refused to go back to bed. Instead of spending the night, he got his shotgun and walked home in the dark. I reckon he told them that he would rather take his chances walking home in the dark than to spend the night with whatever was in that room. This is about all I can remember about the old dining room, and I often think about it and wonder what was in that haunted it. I guess we'll all never know for sure. That's pretty profound. Sounds like a great room to investigate if that was still there, but apparently it was already wiped out many years ago. But that's the kind of room you definitely want to set up equipment and some cameras and see what you could capture. This one is from Hawaii. It's a psychic medium story. I think this person, we've read some other stories this person had submitted, some other encounter stories, and they were really well written, so I hope so, because they were always a pleasure to read. Talk about an active evening. I finally went to the gate to nowhere at night. I made sure not to go too late, and I got there around 8 p.m. This environment is packed with paranormal activity. The interesting thing, I felt safer at night than during the daytime visit. The last daytime visit brought out some anxiety in me, and I felt myself holding my breath a lot. I was accosted on all sides with ghostly activity. The electrical charge emanating from the area is truly surreal, and my skin was crawling with goosebumps. One feels like they've stepped into another time dimension, another plane, and it feels so strange to stand there in the center and let me describe my nighttime encounter. I drove up to the northeast corner and parked at the edge, and the area was pitch black, just as I suspected. No street lamps, no lighting except for in the distance from the airport. And as I've stated in prior published experience, the previous visit in the daytime, this area is surrounded by water on three sides. Some sort of like a causeway jutting out over the ocean. It was dead silent, and I didn't hear any sounds of night insects. It was eerily still, but I didn't feel afraid. None of the feelings of being overwhelmed was in place, and I felt as though they knew I had arrived, and they were patiently waiting for me. I know that sounds odd and egotistical, but this is what I picked up right away. It felt like I was the guest of honor at this spectral gathering place. Time felt as though it had stopped completely. Straining my ears to hear any sound, I heard the voices calling me. They were very soft. Voices were coming at me from all directions, and I heard the young to old welcoming me back. And this had never happened before, and let me explain what I heard. Imagine 1,000 voices, each separate, none unheard, and all of them distinct, all of them saying, "Please come. You're welcome here. Hello, come forward and enter." I had never had so many pleasant auditory messages. Usually I get distress, angst, frustration, mixed with tears or worse. But this was very nice. I felt no signs of danger, no demonic entities. Like I said before, the night visit was so different from the daytime visit. I took my camera and entered the dirt road to the left of the field. It was icy cold. And this is not unusual with so many entities in one place. No one was dragging at my heartstrings to send them on, and they all seemed to stand back and away from me, careful not to suck away my precious living energy. I can't tell you how much this meant to me. I had my camera with me, of course, but I never know if my camera will work around this much electrical drain. But they allowed me to take photos. The batteries didn't go dead right away. They lasted almost until the end of my short visit. I had time to post one photo. That was weird. I had time to post one photo on my website and another on my blog. I have dozens of entity shots, mists, orbs, a dark figure jumping between two trees to escape from the flash of the camera. This last one is posted on my website. If you're interested, go to my profile page and click on either the website or the blog, and you can see the pictures better on the website than the blog. They post larger, better viewing. I don't think those links probably work. I think we tried those links when this person talked about it, because this story is from 2008, ladies and gentlemen, so a lot of those sites are now defunct. I don't have the time to write all that I was shown, but it was a unique experience, and I couldn't stay at the location for long because I was growing exhausted. With all the apparitional utterance, they stayed back at least 10 to 20 feet away, but I was having trouble catching my breath. It was like the atmosphere was being drained of my life-giving air. In turn, this made me very tired, and I don't usually believe in or encourage ghost hunting, but Certain areas intrigue me, and if I'm being called to go, I go. I viewed lots of time periods coming and going from the location. I saw ancient Hawaii in near naked stance. I saw and heard the overdressed missionary and many, many field workers, and it grew tiring to focus on all of the wavering activity, and the colors were hurting my eyes. Bright white to shadowy mist and heavy ectoplasm in the air, and it looked like it was dripping from some of the trees. The movement all around me was in the hundreds, maybe more. Hard for one woman to decipher, and I vow to go back soon, maybe to get more information. None of the local people I have asked about this place want to talk about it. Many of them are afraid of the way it makes them feel. I was glad I didn't have to deal with any demonic stuff, but I felt very protected. There were entities there that had an almost angelic presence, and I was surrounded by them. And although I didn't stay long, I got the impression this place is very sacred. It will be interesting to see what I learn about this place. The entities wouldn't or couldn't give me any information. Believe me, I asked them. I still think it's a travel portal of sorts, but I really don't understand what these portal areas connect to. There were just some things that we're not meant to know, and I'm okay with that. It's human nature to want answers, but in time, maybe. That's very cool. And there are sacred areas, of course, all over the world, and many of the native populations had come to know those because they lived in such balance with the world. So, and there's a reason those places were sacred, and perhaps they are just anchor points or portal points, and there might be something to that, but very interesting nonetheless. I think that's really cool. And, I believe, I don't know if I've shared it recently, but there was a space on the forest behind my house growing up that was just a natural altar. And I've shared the story about how I used to go up there when I was younger and just sit in the forest, and it was perfect. There was this pile of ancient limestone boulders, and it was covered in the softest moss you can believe. It was like a carpet. It was so thick and comfortable. And I would go up there and sit, and it was, of course, in a forest, and it was all a canopy of trees and things around. But above this one spot was where the sun always shone through, and the light beams would come down, and it was really this magical place. That's the best way I can describe it. It was a magical place. And I would go up there many, many times during every summer and just sit for as long as I could and just soak it in. It was a really special place to me. And I didn't know why. It just was. I felt like everything that was going sideways in my life or whatever, just being a kid, a confused kid, and being a teenager, it was like this place made me feel comfortable and safe, and it was really a powerful place. And then they came through and they logged the place. They logged this area, which was a heartbreaker because after they logged it, this place didn't exist. I couldn't find the boulders. And I'd been to this place dozens and maybe hundreds of times through the years growing up there. But the place ceased to exist. It just was gone. And they could have bulldozed it because they did have to make a road through there. It could have been bulldozed and the rocks pushed aside. And whatever. There's nothing I could do about it. But I waited maybe for several years, making jaunts up there over that time to try to figure out if that place still existed, but it didn't. And I took my two older sons, my middle and oldest son, up to that area to try to show them at least where it was. And we couldn't find it exactly, but we went a little higher up on the hill, and all three of us stopped at the same time. And it was a spring day. The snow was melting, but there was still ice dangling from some of the dead trees that were laying around. And we all stopped, and I took out my flip phone. It was a Motorola flip phone at the time. And I started taking pictures because all three of us felt that this was a very special place too. And I took pictures, and every one of those pictures had these rainbow bands of light in them. And they weren't just across the frame. They were going three-dimensionally, like from right in front of me off into the distance and then turning and going, and they would grow narrower as they went. So these lights were participating in the scene. And were they energies? Were they entities? I think so. They were just the most amazing bands of light. And like I said, they were in three-dimensional space in the photo. It's not like there was just a shaft of light or something. They went from close and wide to distance, weaving in and out of things and up and over logs and under logs and out of frame and then up. And they were the most spectacular light shots I ever got. And I was so proud of that. And I kept that phone and I kept those pictures. I didn't have a computer at that time, so I couldn't do anything with them. But then the phone died and like really died. And I lost them. I lost those photos, and I tried to take out the memory card and recover them, but they were just gone. Everything was corrupted. So they still live in my heart, but those photos don't exist anymore. But it was the most amazing photos that I'd seen up to that point. I mean, I've seen other amazing photos since then, not of my own, but other people have taken. But those are mine. That was there, and I remember the experience. And I wish I could show you guys what I saw, but you'll just have to believe me. It was incredible. Thank you, Titan. I appreciate that. All right, so let's go to the next one, and this one is coming from Illinois. It's called Victorian Flat 2, and I don't know where Flat 1 is, but we'll read this. It has to do with haunted places. So some background information. My fiance and I have moved out of a complex and now into an old Victorian home. In a previous post I wrote about seeing a boy in a cape. In the last weeks of living there, I didn't see him, and with the stress of moving and the rental company being jerks, I didn't see him, or I guess I didn't look for him. On to the new place. It's a 2-story home built in the 1900s. It has been converted and /rented as a 2-flat. And there's a man above us, and his part of the rental sits towards the front of the house. In other words, his space is only above our master bedroom and guest room. And it's hard to explain, and hopefully you get the idea. As stated, the home was built in the 1900s. A railroad top executive owned it. And he had servants and servant quarters, really just the attic, which were converted into 2 rooms. And we have access to this, or as it's above our kitchen. Our neighbor doesn't, nor does he have access to the yard or garage. And I'm not sure how long the railroad exec was here. The next known tenant was a lawyer who practiced in the home. And finally, the tenants before us were a young couple. So here we go. I've been unpacking and putting things away, pretty much settled. My fiance is an art teacher. And needless to say, we have a lot of artwork. And he has about 4 5x7 canvases on display in the living room, and they rest on a bookshelf, more like lodged between the top of a bookshelf and the bottom slat of wood. When I say lodged, I mean we stuck them in there tight. Three times 2 of the 4 canvases have just fallen off and out. No stomping from upstairs, no large trucks driving by, just plop. They fall. Well, maybe that isn't anything, but it is odd. Our bedroom's across from the living room, and there's a hall that divides it. And the hall is the only part of the house down here that has wooden floors. The landlord put new carpeting in here, which I absolutely hate. Often at night, I hear what sounds like someone dragging their feet against the wood. Sort of like when you're shuffling in slippers. Our neighbor works nights, 11:30 to 7 a.m., I believe. So it's not him. My fiance is a very heavy sleeper. It isn't him. The shuffling doesn't last long. It is, however, loud enough to startle you. Once again, maybe it's something outside or the house settling, but I find it really odd. Finally, the servants' quarters. Now, the idea that someone had servants here, of course, can be unsettling in some people's minds. It didn't really bother me because I think it adds to the history of the house. Yet, when you go up there, you see the original woodwork, wear and tear, and it can be a little uneasy. There's also a very old-looking rosary hanging from a nail with no cross. I don't know if that has any meaning, but I didn't care for it. Kyle has set up his easel and paints up there, and I don't go up there, and Kyle has been too busy to paint. We had a washer and dryer delivered from Best Buy, and I was home when it was delivered. One of the Best Buy guys was talking to me, asking me questions about the house, just small chit-chat, and our neighbor had been gone all day, and I was the only one home when these men arrived. The Best Buy guy asked me if anyone lived in the back of the house, second floor, and I told him no, that it was an attic of storage, and he said, he sort of went, like I stumped him. Then he goes, well, that's weird. When we pulled up, we saw someone walking around up there. I replied something like, really? Huh. We continued to make small talk, both ignoring the monkey in the room, and they left. I have never seen anyone up there other than myself, Kyle, and a few people that we've had over. I think that's pretty cool. Nothing bad, nothing horrible. Some places just have a presence. It's just the way of the world, ladies and gentlemen, just the way of the world. This one is coming from Minnesota, my old stomping grounds. This happened, it has to do with apparitions, voices, and touches. Okay. That's a very short story. This happened to my stepdaughter last night, which was December 3rd of 2008. Again, so last night isn't really last night. I'm not sure I should say it, but it was the Whistler, but then we are claiming anything happened here is him in his prankish style. So far, she had not had an experience from him. Stepdaughter had not had an experience from him, and that night she was reading her book in the living room on the love seat with the TV on. My wife was in the kitchen, the boy was practicing his guitar in his bedroom, and I was in the basement on the computer, and she's into reading vampire books right now, and was reading one at the moment with the cat by her side on the couch that does not rock. She closed her book to get up to go to her computer when the couch started shaking. It was not a violent shake to her, but one you get when you notice that it was unreal. Both she and the cat jumped off in shock, and she saw nothing shaking, but it shook and then quit after she got off and ran to the kitchen to tell her mom. Then they both rushed downstairs to let me know. We do not live in an active earthquake system or fault here in Minnesota, at least not an active one, but if that were so, there would be more than the love seat rocking, and the cat did not like what was going on either, possibly a brief visit from our frequent visitor. As I was reading that, I was thinking, well, maybe the ghost was reading with her and was kind of pissed that she closed the book. Do you think they might do that? Do you think they might shoulder surf and just like, yeah, that's a good book, I'm going to read that with you? I think it's possible. It just, it wouldn't surprise me, I guess, too much. I can't imagine that, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot for them to do sometimes. So maybe they do. Maybe they just shoulder surf, read things if we're reading, or watch, they might be watching YouTube with you guys right now. Who knows? Sitting right there next to you. Somebody wrote me an email and said, what did he say? He said that he was listening to the show last night with Al Tyus, and he said he's had a picture of his dad on the wall for years, or I think it was years, and he said that during the show last night, that picture jumped off the wall right when he was looking up, and he said it was pretty bizarre. So I can't remember who sent that. I'll have to look. I just read it just before the show. And not that I'm going to necessarily drop the person's name, but I found that very interesting. I'm just looking right now. I just thought it was really cool. It's a very short little story, but let me see if I can find it here. Blah, 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 not that one. No, not that one either. Huh. I didn't even know that one was there. Okay. I'll have to find it and definitely share it on one of our shows. Okay. Well, I'm sorry I can't tell you exactly who said it or what they said, but it was, in a nutshell, they saw the picture jump off the wall as they're watching my show last night. Now, I've got to tell you guys, and comes up, and I don't know what to make of it. I never anticipated this being a phenomena that would happen with the portal, but I get a lot of messages from people who talk about the fact that things do happen when they watch the show around them, and I find that really interesting. I don't know if perhaps it's the concept of people just being focused on the spiritual, and so they're manifesting that energy, and it's maybe awakening something that's there. I don't know. It's kind of concerning to me though, because I don't want people to be experiencing negative things while they're listening to my show. And so I don't know quite what to make of that. I've gotten several people writing me about that. They're like, this never happened until I started listening to your show, that kind of stuff. Or we'd have activity, but it was very rare. But since I listened to your show, it's gone way up. And I don't know what to do with that, really. It's a concerning thing for sure. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's like I just said. Maybe they're just shoulder surfing with you guys. If you're one of those people, maybe they're there watching with you and decide, hey, now's a good time to show you I'm here. And so you're already thinking about ghosts and stuff. So I'm going to show you that I've been here all along. And, maybe it's something like that where they're finding that it's a good time to make their awareness known because you're already in that zone with the portal. I don't know. I'm just, again, thinking out loud, I guess, but it's something that I don't know what to make of it. I'm really not sure. So you'll have to tell me what you guys think. Yeah, there you go, Duke. That's true. But anyway, let's go to Nebraska for the next one. Oh, getting a lot of sequel stories tonight. Now, the last one was The Visitor, The Whistler, number 4. And the one before that was the Victorian Flat 2 or whatever. And now this one's Neighbors 2. I don't know what's going on. We're getting a lot of numbered stories tonight. I don't ever recall seeing that before. This one's coming from Nebraska, and it has to do with apparitions, voices, and touches. It says, as I left the house to go shopping, the wind picked up and pricked a chill on my cheeks. And this is a fairly typical for Nebraska in December, so I didn't think anything of it. I walked about 10 or 20 feet to my truck, head down, and hands in the pockets. The only thing plaguing my mind was was what was needed from the grocery store, and I was mentally chastising myself for not making a list. The wind stopped, just stopped. I looked up to see if someone or something had stepped in the path to block the wind, but nothing was there. Nothing I could see anyway. I looked around and the trees and the leaves were still blowing like crazy around the yards and the street, but no wind was touching me. Nothing at all. I got goosebumps and I felt that all too familiar anxiety creeping up on me, causing my heart to race and my breathing to quicken. I knew I wasn't alone. As I tried to decide whether to proceed the additional 10 feet to my truck or to turn back around to the house and ask my husband to join me, I heard this laugh. Maybe laugh isn't the right word. It was more of a sharp, high-pitched cackle. It seemed to resonate from everywhere. I had heard a similar cackle like this before. Too many times before. The gray lady cackled like this. But somehow this was of a deeper voice. I looked up to my neighbor's house that was still vacant, and in the attic window stood the long dark-haired woman. Her mouth was open and moving. The laughing cackle was coming from her, and her eyes were black as night. No whites to her eyes, just black almond shapes. And her hair was straight down. Her arms were down at her sides, and she appeared to be wearing a red t-shirt and blue jeans. There was some sort of green light lighting her from behind. I heard the dog bark as I had those couple of mornings, and I turned and ran into the house. As I was opening the door, the wind kicked back up, fiercer than before. I asked my husband if he would mind going to the store with me so he could help carry the bags. When we left the house about 5 minutes later, me exiting first, I stepped outside and I heard the cackle again, and after my husband and I started walking to the truck, it stopped. My husband's only comment was to state that he wishes someone would hurry up and buy that house already. It was giving him the creeps. I've asked him on numerous occasions if he's ever seen or heard anything from the house next door. He just changes the subject. As I've mentioned in previous stories, he doesn't accept anything paranormal, or as he states it, something that is just not logical. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the house or its inhabitants, but it's really freaking me out. After all of my experiences with the Gray Lady, I'm beginning to wonder if this is somehow related. Is this woman I am seeing actually the Gray Lady in a different form? I don't know what to think. I just know I've been parking across the street because walking anywhere near that house has such a heavy, oppressive dread feeling to it. It just makes me physically have a headache and get nauseated. Yeah, that's pretty sad. I don't know. I don't understand those dark, dark presences. Horrible stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Horrible stuff. Is the stream lagging at all, guys? Is it going okay? I see I got the YouTube red bar here, which usually means my stream is not really sharp. It's going good. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. All right, good. Well, now it just went green, so. All right, good. I'm glad. It's just, it's concerning when that happens. So I want to give you guys the best show I can because, well, you deserve it. Let's see what we got next. This is probably the last story tonight, so let's read this one. And it's a damn long one. No, this isn't this last story tonight. This will be a story for tomorrow night. Let me pull up a shorter one for tonight because we've got just moments left, really. But, I mean, we got as much time left as we want, but just to, to stay on schedule. Let's see if this one's okay. I'll read this one. This one's coming from California. And it has to do with apparitions, voices, and touches. And it says, I'm completely baffled by this experience, and I would like to see if anyone has any ideas as to what it might be. I've considered the possibility it may be a residual haunting, but the urgency and the powerful emotions I feel associated to this experience suggest otherwise. My house is fairly new, so there really isn't much history I can offer on it. It was built in 2002, I believe. And the story is dated from 2008. I was lying on my bed last night, engrossed in an exciting book, similar to Indiana Jones, but with a female protagonist. My younger brother was in his room next door to mine, and my mom was playing a game on her computer 2 rooms down from us, while she waited for my dad to come home. No one else was in my room, and the door was wide open. I didn't have any music playing, and the TV was off. My brother's door was shut, and he was quiet. Out of nowhere, my vision goes completely black. That alone was enough to scare the living daylights out of me. But then I see the image of a woman with short blonde hair and blue eyes, and she's wearing plain clothes, just jeans and a t-shirt, really. She looked to be in her early 20s. She was very pretty, but I noticed that her hair was disheveled and her skin was dirty. For whatever reason, I had the distinct impression that she'd been involved in some sort of traffic accident. Her demeanor was very urgent, like whatever she was about to say to me was of grave importance. The only thing she said to me was, "You have to warn Taylor. Tell him that the thing he's been afraid of is going to happen soon." Then this vision, or whatever it was, faded and left me lying there on the bed with the book still in my hands, like nothing ever happened. And the best part? I don't even know anybody named Taylor. Can someone help me with this? Does anyone know someone named Taylor who has a deep fear that something bad is going to happen to them? I really hope I can figure this out. I feel so bad for that woman. Whoever she was, she really wanted me to warn this Taylor. I just have no idea who he is. I'm not under a whole lot of stress, and I wasn't asleep at all. Any ideas? So there's an update from the webmaster of the site. It says, I recently spoke with my fiance about the woman and her plea to warn Taylor. And he gave me a queer little grin and said, I know a Taylor. I asked him who, and he said that his ex-fiance's current husband's name is Taylor. It's a stretch, but the man is a blonde-haired guy who seems to be quite close in description to the girl that I saw. Coincidentally, his ex-fiance noticed him online the other day and struck up a conversation with him for the first time since he and I got together. These events seemed a little too coincidental, don't you think? It says, thanks to everyone who helped me out with this. Wow. Very interesting. I don't know. Premonitions, forewarnings, foreshadowing. It's all a part of the paranormal, I guess. But how do we end up getting here? We got up to 48. Not bad, not bad. I know it's been a busy night. Lots of things going on out there with a lot of people we know doing shows tonight. So I can't complain too much. I mean, I'm here every night. So what are you going to do? But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for our show tonight. A little quaint, close-knit group of paranormal enthusiasts are we. So hope you guys had a good time regardless. And I will be back, of course, tomorrow night. Yeah, please give me the likes because we're going to need all we can get to get this video recommended. I'll be back tomorrow night with another Night Terrors, of course. And I don't know. I hope you guys are being careful out there. I've been, of course, hearing so much about this, the, pandemic sweeping the face of the world. And it's concerning. I know. All I would just say is try not to look through the eyes of fear. I think that fear lowers our resistance to things. I think fear cripples us in a big way. So if you're feeling a lot of anxiety about that, just all you can do is do the best you can. And if it's not enough, then I don't know, what can you do? Just be as careful as you can be as prepared as you're able to be, and be careful. Stay away from people as much as you can. I don't know. I mean, I'm no expert on any of this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't know much about it, but I just know that we can't live our lives through the lens of fear. We just can't, because if you are, you're not living your life. You're living someone else's feelings about the way you should live your life. Nobody wants to get sick, obviously, and God willing, we'll all make it through this just fine. I know it's kind of scary and kind of daunting, but just make the best choices you can. Be careful, be good to yourself, take your vitamins, do things you can to boost your immune system, wash your hands, and make good choices. Some of us are, I'm pretty much a recluse anyway. I don't go too many places, so my chance of exposure is at least limited, but I'm certainly, concerned that there's, this is something very real and very scary. So just take it as best you can, and, send out lots of good vibes, send out lots of love, and, try to cancel out some of that fear out there, because there's a lot, there does seem to be a real concerted effort to keep people afraid. There's always something to be afraid of. It's the very reason I don't watch the news at all anymore. I don't have any time for any of the news channels, because first of all, I'm it's very clear that there's always a slant to whatever you're listening to. There's always it's always propaganda, either one side or the other, and it just gets old. But it's just, for whatever reason, it's crippling people. It's crippling our society in many ways. It's causing people to be distrustful and suspicious and to move apart. And I don't think our future is not apart. It's together. It's about moving forward and moving past things. I think that's what why this time is so important, is we're moving past a lot of the old paradigms and a lot of the old hurdles that used to cripple our societies. And so this is a time of awakening, I think, and there seems to be a lot of people that are really concerted in their efforts to keep us vibrating in the low fear spectrum, and that's not going to be helpful for any of us. So just trust in the hands of fate, in destiny, and in what providence, in your, in the divine, and whatever you want to call it, and trust that you're here for a reason. We're all here for a reason, so it's not to live in fear. So anyway, shine your light as much as you can, and live the best life you know how to. And if our lives are not meant to be long, then at least they'll be amazing. So that's about all I have tonight. I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. And wash your hands. All right, guys. Love you bunches, and I'll see you tomorrow night right here on the Portal, 7 p.m. Pacific time, 7 days a week, right here on our YouTube channel. There's a Paranormal Portal streaming live to you. So I'll be back tomorrow for another one of these fun-filled adventures, and I hope you'll join me. And let people know. Keep spreading the word, please. Got to have a lot of people learning about us. So good night, everybody.